The Grand Hotel stood tall in the middle of the busy city. People from many countries came there every day. Some arrived for business, some for rest, and some to celebrate special days. The hotel was known for its shining floors, golden lights, and smiling staff. Everyone believed it was a place where no guest would ever feel lost. But one evening, something happened that no one in the hotel expected. A man stepped out of a long black car. His steps were calm, yet strong. He wore a simple white robe, the kind worn in desert lands, and his face showed dignity. His name was Zaid. Few people in the city knew him, but the world of business knew him very well. He was one of the richest Arab men, a man whose companies stretched from the desert to the sea. Yet, Zaid did not walk into the hotel with pride or noise. He entered quietly, his dark eyes watching everything with care. The hotel manager hurried to greet him. The receptionist stood straighter, ready to impress. Bellboys lined up to take his bags. For them, this was a special chance to serve a very important guest. "Good evening, sir," the manager said with a wide smile. "Welcome to our hotel." Zaid answered, but his words were in Arabic. His voice was deep, gentle, but full of meaning. The staff froze. They had expected English, maybe even French, but not Arabic. None of them understood a single word. The receptionist gave an awkward smile and held out a form. Zaid looked at it, frowned, and spoke again in Arabic, this time slower. Still, no one understood. One staff member pulled out his phone and opened a translation app, but the signal was weak, and the words on the screen made no sense. The manager tried hand gestures, pointing at the elevator and then at the keys. Another tried to show him where to sign. But Zaid's face grew more distant. He had traveled far, leaving behind his homeland, but here too, he felt like a stranger. The bright lobby, filled with flowers and music, suddenly felt cold. Guests waiting in line grew restless. Some whispered, some laughed quietly, but Zaid stood tall, his silence louder than their voices. Money could buy rooms, cars, and even entire buildings, but it could not buy understanding. For the staff, the moment turned heavier by the second. The manager felt his pride slipping. He was used to solving problems, but this guest was different. This guest carried both power and loneliness in his presence. Then, from the far corner of the lobby, a quiet sound broke the silence. "Anna of Ham," the words came gently, yet clearly. "I understand." Everyone turned their heads. It was not a manager, not a receptionist, not even a senior staff member. It was Amina, the maid. She stood with a folded towel in her hands, her uniform simple, her face calm. She was often unseen, moving in and out of rooms, cleaning the corners no one noticed. But now, she stepped forward with steady steps. In perfect Arabic, she greeted him, "Assalamu alaikum. Do you need help?" Zaid's face changed in a moment. His eyes softened, his shoulders eased, and a small smile appeared. For the first time since he entered, he felt seen. "Wa alaikum assalam," he answered warmly. Relief washed over him like rain on dry land. The staff stood in shock. They had been working in this grand hotel for years, but not one of them could speak the language of their guest. The man they could not understand had been waiting for someone to break the wall of silence. And the one who broke it was the maid they often overlooked. Amina looked at the manager, then back at Zaid. She did not show fear or hesitation. She listened carefully as he spoke in Arabic, asking for a simple room with privacy, no noise, and no crowd. His words carried not only request but also weariness, as though he was tired of being surrounded by people who only saw his wealth and not his soul. She translated his needs calmly to the manager. At once, everything became smooth. The key was prepared, the bellboy was sent, and the path was cleared. But the most important thing was not the room, it was the connection that had been made. Zaid walked toward the elevator, his steps lighter than before. Before he entered, he turned once more to Amina. His eyes held gratitude, a silent thank you. She nodded back, a small smile on her lips. That night, the hotel learned something they had never thought about. Understanding was not about golden doors, tall buildings, or expensive service. Sometimes, it was hidden in the quiet presence of someone the world did not see. And for Zaid, the lonely billionaire, his story in the city had just begun, not with wealth, but with the simple voice of a maid who spoke his language. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the hotel. Guests hurried in and out, the lobby was filled with movement, and the staff returned to their busy work. Yet the memory of the night before lingered quietly in everyone's minds. The billionaire Arab man, Zaid, had entered with silence and left the staff speechless. And the one who had broken the silence was not a manager, not a receptionist, but the maid Amina. Zaid's presence in the hotel became the talk among the staff. Bellboys whispered about the black car he arrived in, receptionists wondered about his wealth, and waiters guessed about his life. Some were impressed, some were curious, but all of them agreed on one thing: nobody had seen a man like him before. Zaid himself, however, stayed quiet. He did not seek attention. His days were filled with business calls in Arabic, meetings through his laptop, and moments of solitude in his room. He would come down to the lobby sometimes, his calm steps and serious eyes making people step aside. He was not rude, but he carried an air of distance, as if the world around him was far away. For most of the staff, Zaid remained a mystery. They served him food without knowing if he liked it. They cleaned his room without hearing a word of thanks. They brought him papers to sign without knowing what he truly wanted. But for Amina, it was different. Whenever Zaid came down, his eyes searched the lobby until they found her. And each time, relief touched his face. With her, words were not a struggle. Through her, he could express himself. One afternoon, Zaid asked Amina to sit with him for a moment in the corner of the lobby. The other staff watched with surprise. A billionaire and a maid sitting together was not something they had ever seen. But Zaid did not care for their stares. "You speak Arabic so well," he said in his language, his voice calm. "Where did you learn it?" Amina lowered her eyes for a moment before answering. "I grew up in a small town far from here. My father worked in a place where many Arabs lived. He wanted me to learn their words, so he taught me. Later, I practiced with neighbors and friends. It became a part of me." Zaid nodded slowly. "Your father was wise. Language is a bridge. Without it, people live on different islands, even if they stand side by side." Amina smiled faintly. "That is true. Many people see language as just words, but for me, it is also respect. When you speak to someone in their own tongue, you tell them they are not alone." Zaid looked at her with quiet admiration. She was not dressed in silk, nor covered in gold, but her words carried more richness than jewels. In her, he saw something rare, someone who looked beyond wealth, beyond titles, and saw the human being. The staff noticed how Zaid's mood changed whenever Amina was near. With others, he remained formal, distant. With her, his tone softened, and sometimes a small smile escaped his lips. One evening, when the lobby was less crowded, Amina walked past Zaid's table as he drank tea. He stopped her gently and asked, "Do you ever feel unseen here?" She paused, unsure of how to answer. "Most of the time, yes," she admitted quietly. "Guests pass by without looking. Staff give orders without asking. It is like I am part of the walls." Zaid's eyes grew thoughtful. "Wealth can blind people," he said. "They see money, not the soul." "But you," he stopped, choosing his words carefully. "You see differently." Amina's hands tightened on the cloth she was holding. She did not know why his words touched her so deeply. Perhaps it was because she, too, had felt invisible for so long. In the days that followed, Zaid began to trust her more. He asked her to translate small requests to the staff, to explain his needs when others failed to understand. At first, the manager frowned at this unusual arrangement. But he could not deny that everything worked smoother when Amina was there. Soon, whispers began among the staff. Some said Amina was lucky. Some said she was bold. A few even felt jealous, wondering why the billionaire chose to speak only to her. But Amina ignored their voices. She knew her place in the hotel, and she knew her duty. Still, a quiet pride grew inside her heart. She had become a bridge, a voice, a connection. For Zaid, the Grand Hotel no longer felt so cold. Through Amina's words, he began to understand the city better. She told him stories of the streets, the markets, and the people. He listened carefully, not because he needed the information, but because he valued her voice. Late one night, Zaid stood by the window of his suite, looking at the glowing city below. His thoughts were heavy. In his homeland, he was surrounded by wealth and servants, yet he often felt alone. Here, too, money built walls around him. But the maid's simple voice had broken those walls in a way no amount of riches could. And somewhere deep inside him, a question began to grow: was it fate that had brought her into his path, or was it something more? The story between the billionaire and the maid was only beginning. Days passed, and the hotel grew used to Zaid's quiet presence. Guests whispered about him, the staff observed him carefully, but nobody truly understood him except Amina. She became his voice in a world where his words had no meaning. Every morning, Amina would see him in the lobby or on the terrace. Sometimes he asked her to translate a message to the staff. Sometimes he asked about the city. Other times, he simply wanted to hear her speak. Her Arabic was smooth, respectful, and filled with warmth. One afternoon, Zaid invited her to sit across from him in the hotel garden. The air was calm, flowers swayed with the breeze, and the sound of water flowing from a small fountain filled the silence. "You remind me of my sister," Zaid said softly in Arabic. "She always spoke with honesty, never fearing to say the truth. She passed away many years ago." Amina lowered her eyes. "I am sorry for your loss." Zaid gave a small nod. "Loss follows even the richest man. Money cannot bring back those who are gone." Amina listened quietly. She had never imagined a billionaire would share his pain with her. To her, he was a man far above her world, someone with endless wealth, someone untouchable. But in that moment, she saw not the businessman, not the billionaire, but a brother who still carried grief. The bond between them deepened day by day. But not everyone liked it. Some staff members grew uneasy. The receptionist whispered, "Why does he always call for her? She is only a maid." Another said, "This is unfair. We have been trained, yet he ignores us." Their jealousy began to spread like smoke. The manager, too, was troubled. He did not like the idea of a maid becoming so close to such an important guest. To him, it seemed unprofessional. But each time he thought of speaking, he remembered how Zaid had praised Amina's help. He did not want to risk offending a billionaire, so he stayed silent. One evening, a problem arose. Zaid wanted to arrange a meeting with a local businessman. He tried speaking to the receptionist, but the receptionist could not understand his request. Frustration filled the air. Finally, Zaid asked for Amina. She came, calm as always, and listened. She translated his words clearly, explained his needs, and made the arrangement without difficulty. The manager saw the relief on Zaid's face and the trust in his eyes. Still, deep down, the manager's pride burned. Later that night, the manager called Amina into his office. "You must remember your position," he said sternly. "You are here to clean rooms, not to spend your time with guests. Do not forget that." Amina's heart sank. She respected her job, but she also knew she was helping the hotel by assisting Zaid. "I only translate when he needs me," she said quietly. The manager frowned. "Be careful. People are watching. Too much closeness will bring trouble." Amina left the office with heavy steps. For the first time, she felt torn between her duty as a maid and her bond with Zaid. She wondered if helping him would cost her place in the hotel. The next morning, she tried to avoid Zaid. She cleaned the room silently, keeping her distance. But Zaid noticed. He asked the staff where she was, his eyes scanning the lobby. Finally, he saw her in the corner, folding sheets. He walked to her and asked gently, "Why do you hide from me today?" Amina hesitated. "I don't want to cause trouble." "Trouble?" Zaid's brows lifted. "The staff talk. The manager warned me," she admitted. Her voice was low, but steady. Zaid's eyes grew serious. "You have done nothing wrong. You gave me a voice when nobody else could. Do not let anyone make you feel less." For a moment, silence lay between them. Then Zaid added, "Sometimes the ones the world ignores are the ones who carry the greatest value." Amina felt her heart stir. His words were not spoken with pity, but with respect. Still, she feared the consequences. She knew she could not walk freely beside a man like him. Their worlds were too far apart. That night, Zaid stayed awake in his room, thinking. He had spent years surrounded by people who served him for his wealth, who smiled at him for his power. But here, in this hotel, a maid had treated him with respect that was not tied to money. She had seen him as a man, not as a fortune. He thought of the warning she had received, and a quiet anger rose within him. Why should kindness be punished? Why should honesty be silenced? The next morning, Zaid went down to the lobby. The staff watched as he walked directly to the manager. His voice was firm, his words clear in Arabic, and Amina translated every sentence. "She is not just a maid," Zaid declared through her. "She is the reason I stayed in this hotel. Without her, I would have left on the first night." The manager's face paled. The other staff fell silent. Zaid's words carried weight heavier than gold. From that day, no one dared to question Amina's presence beside him. But inside her heart, she knew the journey was only beginning. The bond between the billionaire and the maid was no longer hidden in silence. It had now become a story that the whole hotel could see. The days in the hotel turned into weeks, and the story of Zaid and Amina slowly spread beyond the walls of the lobby. Guests whispered about the billionaire Arab man who always spoke with the maid. Some found it curious, some found it touching, and a few could not understand it at all. For Zaid, each day brought him closer to Amina. She had become his guide, his translator, and in many ways, his friend. With her, his silence disappeared. Through her words, the city no longer felt foreign. He listened to her stories about her childhood, about her father who had taught her Arabic, about her struggles to earn enough to support her younger brother who was still studying. Amina spoke simply, but her honesty carried weight. She never tried to impress him, never asked for anything. She treated him with respect, but never fear. And this difference touched Zaid deeply. One evening, Zaid invited Amina to sit with him in the quiet lounge of the hotel. The lights were soft, and only a few guests sat far away. "You are different from the people I usually meet," he told her. "How?" she asked softly. "They see my wealth before they see me. But you, Amina, you see my words. That is rare." Amina lowered her gaze. "Maybe because I know what it feels like to be unseen. People pass me every day without looking. To them, I am just part of the hotel." Zaid leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "Then maybe we are not so different. I have wealth, you do not. Yet in our own ways, we both walk unseen." Their conversation ended with silence, but it was not empty. It was filled with an understanding that words could not fully explain. But as their bond grew stronger, so did the eyes watching them. The hotel was a place of gossip, and whispers traveled faster than footsteps. Some staff began to say Amina was using Zaid's trust for her own gain. Others said Zaid was too close to a maid. The air of judgment grew heavier with each passing day. One afternoon, when Amina walked through the corridor, two staff members spoke loudly enough for her to hear. "She thinks she is special now," one said. "Just because the billionaire talks to her. She forgets she is only a maid," the other added. Amina kept walking, her face calm, but inside, her heart ached. She never wanted to appear above anyone. She only wanted to help, to bridge the gap that others could not. Yet, no matter how hard she worked, some people would only see her as someone who didn't belong. That evening, she tried to keep her distance from Zaid again. She worried that her closeness to him would bring more trouble. But Zaid noticed her silence. "What is wrong?" he asked gently in Arabic. "Nothing," she replied, forcing a smile. Zaid studied her face. "Do not hide your pain from me. I see it." Finally, she confessed. "People talk. They say I am too close to you. They see me differently now, and not in a good way." Zaid's jaw tightened. He had lived his whole life surrounded by judgment, people who measured him by gold, not by truth. But to see Amina, a woman so sincere, carry the weight of gossip, angered him. "Let them talk," he said firmly. "They do not know you. They do not know me. Words cannot break what is honest." But Amina shook her head. "You are strong, Zaid. You can ignore them. But I am not like you. I have no shield. Every word cuts me." His heart softened at her honesty. He wanted to protect her, to silence every whisper. Yet he knew protection was not always possible. People's tongues were sharp, and silence often became their weapon. That night, something unexpected happened. A businessman from the city came to meet Zaid in the hotel. He was wealthy, proud, and curious about Zaid's influence. As they sat in the lobby, the businessman struggled to communicate in broken English. Once again, Amina was called to translate. She stood between them, her words carrying Zaid's voice smoothly. The meeting went well, and Zaid's respect for her grew even more. But the businessman's eyes lingered on Amina longer than they should have. Later, he pulled Zaid aside and said in English, "Strange. A billionaire speaking so freely with a maid. You surprise me." Zaid's eyes grew cold. "Strange," he repeated. "What is strange about respect? What is strange about being understood?" The businessman laughed awkwardly and tried to change the subject, but Zaid's heart was heavy. It was clear now outside judgment would not stop. When Amina left that night, she whispered softly, "Maybe I should step back. Maybe this is not good for you." But Zaid shook his head firmly. "Do not say that. You gave me a voice when I had none. You gave me peace when I was alone. Do not take that away." His words filled Amina's eyes with tears she quickly wiped away. She nodded, though her heart was still unsure. In the quiet of his room, Zaid looked out the window at the city lights. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, something stronger than loneliness, stronger than wealth. It was connection. It was the simple truth that one voice had changed his world. But outside, in the corridors of the hotel, whispers continued to grow. And soon, those whispers would bring challenges neither Zaid nor Amina expected. The days in the hotel moved like waves, quiet on the surface, but full of unseen movement below. For Zaid and Amina, every meeting, every conversation, every shared word of Arabic brought them closer. Yet beyond their connection, whispers continued to grow. Guests noticed the unusual sight of a billionaire sitting with a maid. Some thought it charming, some thought it odd, and others thought it dangerous for Amina. The staff, too, carried their own opinions. Some respected her for her courage, but others saw her as stepping out of place. One afternoon, while Amina was cleaning the hall, two waiters spoke loudly near her. "She thinks she is more important now," one muttered. "Let her enjoy it," the other replied with a smirk. "When the billionaire leaves, she will go back to dusting tables." Amina kept her head down, but their words cut deep. She did not want to be seen as proud. She never asked for special treatment. Yet she could not deny that her life had changed since Zaid arrived. She was no longer invisible. That evening, Zaid called her to his table in the garden. He had been working all day, his laptop filled with documents and numbers, but the moment he saw her, his face softened. "You look tired," he said gently in Arabic. "I am fine," she answered, though her eyes carried the weight of the day. Zaid studied her carefully. "No, you are not fine. Tell me what troubles you." She hesitated, then whispered, "People talk about me. They say I am different now. They say I have forgotten my place." Zaid's jaw tightened. "Your place? And where do they think your place should be?" "In the background," she said softly. "Silent. Unseen." Zaid leaned forward. His eyes, dark and steady, met hers. "Amina, you gave me a voice when I had none. You stood beside me when no one else could. Do not ever believe that you belong in silence. Your worth is not decided by uniforms or whispers." His words lit a small fire in her heart. For a moment, the pain of the gossip faded. Still, she knew the road ahead was not simple. The next day, a new challenge came. A wealthy guest from abroad arrived at the hotel. He was known for his pride and sharp tongue. The manager, eager to impress, introduced him to Zaid. The guest tried to speak with him in English, but once again, Zaid answered in Arabic. Confusion filled the air until Amina stepped forward. As always, she translated smoothly, turning frustration into calm. The guest, however, frowned. After the meeting, he asked the manager quietly, "Why does he use a maid as his translator? This does not look proper." The manager forced a smile, but inside, his worry grew. He feared that Amina's closeness to Zaid might harm the hotel's reputation. Later that night, he called her again to his office. "Amina," he said firmly, "this must stop. Guests are starting to ask questions. You cannot spend so much time with him." Her heart sank. "But he needs me." "Without me, he cannot." "He is a billionaire," the manager interrupted. "He can hire translators from the city, even professionals. You are a maid. Do your work and let him find someone else." Tears burned in Amina's eyes, but she held them back. She nodded quietly and left the office, her steps heavy. That night, she avoided Zaid. She did not come when he asked for her. She did not translate his requests. She moved through the halls like a shadow, cleaning, folding, and serving in silence. Zaid noticed at once. He called the receptionist, but the receptionist could not understand him. He tried with the waiter, but again, confusion followed. Frustration built in his chest until finally, he asked directly for Amina. When she came, her face was calm but distant. "What do you need, sir?" she asked formally in Arabic. Zaid frowned. "Why do you speak like a stranger to me?" "It is better this way," she whispered. "The manager told me not to be close to you. He said I should remember my place." Zaid's expression darkened. "And what did you tell him?" "I said nothing," she admitted. "Because I do not want to lose my job." For a long moment, Zaid was silent. Then he said, "Amina, if this hotel cannot see your worth, then maybe it does not deserve you." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean? You are not just a maid to me. You are my voice, my bridge, my friend. If they cannot respect that, then I will not stay here." Amina's heart raced. She wanted to believe his words, but fear still held her. "You cannot change the way people see me," she said softly. Zaid looked at her firmly. "Maybe I cannot change their eyes. But I can honor the truth I see in you. And I will not let you be silenced." The weight of his promise hung between them. For the first time, Amina felt that her voice mattered, not only to herself but also to someone who carried the power to change everything. But even as hope touched her heart, she knew one thing: the road ahead would not be easy. The whispers had already turned into warnings. And soon, they might turn into actions. The hotel lobby glowed with light that evening, but Amina felt as if shadows followed her everywhere. Ever since the manager's warning, she carried a quiet fear in her heart. She tried to move silently through the halls, keeping her head down, avoiding too much time near Zaid. But the more she pulled away, the more restless he became. Zaid was not a man used to being ignored. In business, his words carried weight across nations. But here, in this hotel, the one person who gave him peace was slipping away. He noticed how Amina avoided his eyes, how she spoke to him with formality now, no longer with the soft tone of comfort. One night, he called her to his table in the lounge. She stood at a distance, waiting. "Sit, Amina," he said in Arabic. "I cannot," she replied gently. "People are watching." "Let them watch," he answered firmly. "I did not come here to please them. I came to find peace. And you," his voice softened, "you gave me that." Her chest tightened. She wanted to sit, to listen, to speak, but the memory of the manager's warning held her still. "If I lose this job, my brother will suffer," she whispered. "I cannot take that risk." Zaid leaned forward, his eyes steady. "And what if I promised you that you would never lose? That I would not let harm touch you?" Amina looked at him with disbelief. "You are a guest, Zaid. You will leave one day. When you go, I will remain here with nothing but their anger." His silence said more than words. He knew she was right. No matter how much he respected her, no matter how much he needed her voice, their worlds were different. He could leave, but she could not. The next morning, the tension in the hotel grew heavier. A letter arrived for Amina, sealed with the hotel's mark. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The message was clear: "Your closeness with guests has been noticed. If this continues, your position will be reviewed." Her heart sank. It was not yet dismissal, but it was a warning that the ground beneath her was breaking. Later that day, she found Zaid in the garden. His eyes lit up when he saw her, but her expression told him something was wrong. She handed him the letter silently. He read it with a slow, careful gaze. When he finished, his hand clenched the paper tightly. "This is injustice," he said in Arabic. "They do not see your worth. They only see rules that protect their pride." Amina's eyes filled with unshed tears. "I told you, Zaid. This is my world. It is different from yours. You fight battles with power. I fight battles with silence." "No," Zaid said firmly. "Not anymore." That evening, Zaid requested a private meeting with the hotel's top management. Amina was called to translate. She stood by his side, her voice carrying his words, but her heart trembled with fear. "This maid," Zaid said, his tone sharp but calm, "is the reason I stayed in your hotel. Without her, I would have left long ago. She gave me a voice when your staff could not. She gave me peace when your walls offered none. And yet, you punish her for doing what none of you could." The room fell silent. The senior manager shifted uncomfortably. Finally, he replied, "With respect, sir, rules must be followed. Staff cannot cross certain lines." "Then your rules are blind," Zaid answered. His eyes were dark, his voice heavy. "Blind to humanity. Blind to respect. Do you not see the treasure you have within these walls?" The managers exchanged uneasy looks. They knew Zaid's influence could not be ignored. Still, they hesitated, bound by pride and fear of setting a new example. After the meeting, Amina walked out quietly, her hands trembling. "You should not have done this," she whispered. "You put yourself against them because of me." Zaid looked at her firmly. "Amina, when someone gives you light in your darkest hour, you do not let that light be put out. Not for silence, not for rules." Her heart stirred at his words, yet fear still lingered. "Even if you defend me, Zaid, I am still only a maid. One day you will leave, and I will still be here." He studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he said, "Do you think wealth makes me free? It does not. Wealth builds walls. But your words broke those walls. That is why you are not just a maid to me." Tears slipped from Amina's eyes before she could stop them. She turned away quickly, afraid he would see her weakness. That night, she lay awake in her small room, her thoughts heavy. She thought of her brother, of her father's lessons, of her endless days of labor. She thought of Zaid's eyes when he told her she was more than what others believed. And for the first time, Amina began to wonder if life could be different. If perhaps her place was not meant to be in the shadows forever. But outside her door, the world of the hotel still waited, filled with whispers, judgments, and rules ready to crush her hope. The battle was not over. It was only beginning. The days after the meeting were heavy with silence. The hotel staff treated Amina with cold politeness, their whispers sharper than before. Some looked at her with envy, others with suspicion. But she walked quietly through the halls, holding her head high, though her heart carried weight. Zaid noticed everything. He saw how the workers turned away when she passed. He saw how the manager avoided her eyes, afraid of both his wealth and his anger. And he saw the quiet strength in Amina's steps, the strength of someone used to storms but unwilling to bow before them. One morning, Zaid asked her to meet him in the garden again. She came, her hands folded, her expression calm but guarded. "Amina," he began softly, "you once told me I will leave, and you will remain here. That is true, but it does not have to be forever." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Zaid continued, "I want to give you a choice. Not as a rich man offering charity, but as a man who has found friendship and trust in a place he never expected. You gave me a voice when I had none. You gave me peace when the world was noise. I cannot forget that." Her eyes lowered, her heart beating fast. "And what choice do I have?" "To step out of this life if you wish," he said. "I will support you, not to control you, but to free you. You spoke of your brother. Let me help with his studies. Let me give you the chance to walk a path where you are not hidden in shadows." Tears welled in her eyes. She had dreamed of freedom, but it always felt far, unreachable. And now, this man was offering it, not with arrogance, but with respect. "Yet still," she whispered, "why me, Zaid? You could have anyone to stand by you. Why a maid?" Zaid smiled gently. "Because others see titles, wealth, and power. You saw a man who was lost in a crowd, unheard and alone. You did not see gold, you saw a heart. That is rare. That is priceless." For the first time, Amina allowed herself to smile in his presence. It was small, fragile, but real. The following week, Zaid prepared to leave the hotel. The staff gathered in the lobby to see him off. His departure was quiet, without the grand displays many expected from a billionaire. He carried himself with dignity, but everyone sensed he was leaving behind more than just a room. Before stepping out, he turned to the staff. His voice, through Amina's translation, echoed across the lobby, "Do not measure people by uniforms or titles. True worth is not always dressed in silk. Sometimes, it is hidden in the hands that clean your halls, in the voices you ignore. Respect is wealth greater than gold." The workers bowed their heads, some in shame, others in thought. The manager forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed discomfort. Then Zaid turned to Amina. In front of everyone, he spoke gently in Arabic, "Our paths may soon separate, but know this: you are not invisible, not to me, not to the one who created us. Walk with pride, Amina." Her eyes filled with tears, but she held them back, bowing her head in respect. After Zaid left, the hotel felt strangely empty. Days passed, and Amina returned to her duties, though now with a spark inside her that had not been there before. She thought often of his words, of the choice he had offered her. Then, one evening, a letter arrived for her. It was sealed with a golden crest she recognized immediately. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a simple message written in Arabic: Amina, I keep my promise. A scholarship has been arranged for your brother. His future is safe. For you, I leave no command, only freedom. If you wish to walk your own path, the door is open. If you wish to remain, I will respect that too. Zaid, her tears finally fell, not of sorrow, but of release. For years she had carried the weight of responsibility, her dreams locked away. And now, the chains had loosened. That night, she sat by the window of her small room, looking at the stars. She thought of her brother, of her father's lessons, of the kindness that had changed her life. She thought of Zaid, not as a billionaire, but as a man who had seen her worth when others could not. For the first time, Amina allowed herself to dream. Not of riches or luxury, but of a life with dignity, respect, and hope. Months later, news spread quietly through the hotel: Amina had left. She was no longer the maid who walked silently with her cleaning tools. She had chosen a different path, one that led beyond the walls that once confined her. The staff whispered again, but this time with surprise, even admiration. Some wondered if she had gone to join Zaid. Others guessed she was studying, building a new life. No one knew for sure. But what was certain was this: she was no longer invisible. Her story had left a mark, not only in the heart of one man but in the silent corridors of the hotel itself. And far away, in another city, Zaid often thought of her too. Not as the maid who once spoke his language, but as the woman who had given him something no wealth could buy: understanding, trust, and light in a lonely place.